All right, ready for a deep dive?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Today, we're tackling Edward O. Thorp and his fascinating life, as told in his autobiography, A Man for All Markets.
A book that's, well, you could say it's more than just your typical autobiography.
Right, it's a roadmap for anyone who's ever looked at a system, any system really, and thought, I bet I can figure that out.
And Thorpe's story is a testament to that kind of thinking, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what's interesting is how early that drive to understand, to kind of outsmart the odds surfaces in his life.
You're talking about that first memory he shares, the one where his family is denied housing during the Great Depression, right?
Exactly. And it's not just that they were struggling, it's that they were denied simply because they had children. Imagine the impact that has on a young mind.
It's like a crash course in unfairness, you know? No
Yeah.
wonder those themes of fairness and opportunity become such a driving force throughout his life.
It's like he decided right then and there that he wasn't going to be a passive player in a world where the rules often seemed rigged against him.
And that's where his fascination with systems and patterns begins to take root, right? He wants to understand how things work, not just accept them at face value.
You see it with that crystal radio set he builds as a kid. This wasn't just a hobby. It was like he was tapping into a secret language, uncovering hidden connections.
That feeling of pulling in distant voices out of thin air, it's like magic.
It is a kind of magic, the magic of understanding. And that magic, that drive to decode the world around him, stays with him. But it wasn't always met with applause, was it?
You're talking about the drawing incident, the one where his innovative technique gets him in trouble at school.
Precisely. He finds a better, more efficient way to replicate drawings. But because it wasn't the approved method, it's seen as, well, almost rebellious.
Which, when you think about it, foreshadows his later willingness to challenge established norms in fields like, well, gambling and finance.
Exactly. And let's not forget his entrepreneurial spirit. The paper route, selling extra papers to soldiers, even creating his own little news service to cater to their interests.
The guy was a hustler, in the best sense of the word. He saw a need, he filled it, and he learned some valuable lessons about market forces along the way.
Especially when competition from other boys starts to eat into his profits. It's a real-world economics lesson playing out on the streets.
Talk about a formative experience. And speaking of early wins, we have to mention the science fair. This is Thorpe, again, outmaneuvering older students to snag the prize.
It's clear even then he had that drive, that competitive edge, coupled with a mind that just devoured knowledge. But it wasn't just about academics and outsmarting his peers. Thorpe had a bit of an adventurous side, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. And nothing says adventure like a teenager building homemade weather balloons. We're not talking about your average birthday party balloons here.
No, we're talking about meticulously engineered contraptions, complete with a gas release system that Thorpe essentially taught himself to design. This is next-level stuff.
Great. It speaks to that hands-on curiosity, the willingness to experiment and push boundaries. And those weather balloon adventures weren't without their own share of mystery, were they?
That encounter with the plane.
It makes you wonder.
Did someone mistake his experiment for something else? Was it a case of Cold War paranoia?
Who knows? But it's those unanswered questions that keep us guessing, right? Just like Thorpe probably was back then.
It's like a small puzzle box within a larger story. And speaking of stories and puzzles, that brings us to the next chapter of Thorpe's life, Las Vegas, where his fascination with probabilities and beating the odds takes center stage.
Vegas, baby. It's like the ultimate playground for a mind like Thorpe's.
Right. Casinos, the dazzling lights, the games of chance. It's almost like stepping into a real-life probability problem.
And Thorpe, he doesn't just see the glitz and glamour. He sees the underlying math, the patterns hidden in plain sight.
He recognized that Blackjack, unlike other casino games, offered a unique opportunity.
Because it's not just about pure luck, right? There's an element of skill, of strategy involved.
Exactly. The cards dealt, the cards remaining, they all factor into the odds. And this is where Thorpe's card counting system comes in.
Legendary. I mean, it's practically the stuff of Hollywood, isn't it?
It certainly captured the imagination. But before the movies, there was Thorpe, hunched over IBM computers at MIT, meticulously developing this system.
Can you imagine? Back then, computers were these massive room-filling machines. It wasn't as simple as whipping out a laptop.
It took dedication, a true understanding of mathematics, and a willingness to challenge conventional wisdom.
And he didn't just stop at the theoretical, did he?
Oh no. To truly test his system, he knew he had to go undercover.
Time to infiltrate the casinos.
He starts with a modest bankroll, a hidden strategy card, and a whole lot of nerve.
I can only imagine the pressure. Walking into that world, the dealers, the pit bosses, the whole atmosphere designed to intimidate.
And yet, here's Thorpe, this mild-mannered math professor, putting his theories on the line.
Talk about a high-stakes gamble.
And the casinos, they weren't just going to sit back and watch him win.
They knew something was up, right?
Oh, they could smell it. Rules changed, distractions deployed. They even tried to throw him off with shills.
Chill.
Attractive people pretending to be players, trying to distract him, throw him off his game.
It's like something out of a spy movie.
It really is. But Thorpe, he remained focused, disciplined. He stuck to his system.
But even when he uncovers a rigged roulette wheel, he doesn't exploit it.
Which speaks volumes about his character. He could have taken advantage, but instead he exposed it.
He was playing a different game, wasn't he? It wasn't just about the money.
It was about fairness, about using his knowledge to level the playing field. But Thorpe's journey into the world of beating the odds, it didn't end with Blackjack.
No, because this is where another brilliant mind enters the picture. Claude Shannon.
The father of information theory.
A legend in his own right.
Their collaboration is the stuff of legend. Imagine these two minds coming together, realizing they could push the boundaries of what was possible.
And what they came up with sounds like something straight out of science fiction. A wearable computer to predict roulette outcomes. A wearable computer. In the 1960s.
It's mind-blowing. Miniaturizing components, ensuring it was discreet, all while dodging casino security.
Now that's what I call high-stakes engineering.
They were literally inventing the future, one spin of the roulette wheel at a time.
But Thorpe, being Thorpe, he saw the bigger picture.
He realized that the principles he'd applied to blackjack probability, risk management, pattern recognition, they had applications far beyond the casino floor.
They were tools that could be used to decode an even bigger, more complex system. Wall Street. So from the casino to the trading floor, kind of a natural progression for a guy like Thorpe, wouldn't you say?
In a way, yes. I mean, both involve risk, probability, and trying to stay one step ahead. But Wall Street, well, it's a whole different beast.
It's the big leagues, right? And Thorpe, he dives in head first.
He starts developing these sophisticated investment strategies. Things like warrant hedging, statistical arbitrage, using math to find those little inefficiencies in the market.
Like finding those tiny cracks in a seemingly impenetrable system.
Exactly. And his book Beat the Market. It really shook things up.
Because he doesn't just talk about these complex strategies, he explains them, making them accessible to individual investors.
He's leveling the playing field, showing that you don't need to be a Wall Street insider to understand, how the game is played.
But Thorpe's story is more than just winning, isn't it? It's also about the lessons he learns along the way.
And those lessons, they're invaluable, especially for anyone who's ever, thought about dipping their toes into the world of investing.
Like that whole thing with Berkshire Hathaway. Talk about a smart investment.
It's easy to look back and say, oh, I wish I'd invested in that. But Thorpe, he saw the potential early on. He recognized the value, the long-term vision.
It's about seeing what others miss, right? But he also experienced those market crashes, the moments when even the best laid plans go sideways.
The silver market crash, for example. It was a stark reminder that risk is always there, that no system is foolproof.
And that's where risk management comes in, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket, don't get greedy, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Thorpe learned those lessons, sometimes the hard way, and he emphasizes them throughout his work. But he also delves into something that's often overlooked. The psychology of the market.
Because it's not just about numbers, is it? It's about human behavior, fear, greed, all those irrational impulses.
The market can be driven by emotion just as much as by logic, and Thorpe, he understood that. But it's amazing to think, we've talked about his strategies, his wins, but there's another side to him, his philanthropy.
Thorpe, the philanthropist. Tell me more.
This is a man who, after achieving incredible success, decides to give back, to invest in future generations.
Like endowing that chair in mathematics at UC Irvine.
Exactly. It's about fostering that same love of learning, that same intellectual curiosity that fueled his own journey. But we can't talk about Thorpe without mentioning, well, his almost uncanny ability to spot a fraud.
You're talking about Bernie Madoff, right? The whole Ponzi scheme debacle.
The one and only. Thorpe, he saw through it years before it all came crashing down.
It's almost like he had a sixth sense, right?
It wasn't just a hunch. He looked at the numbers, saw the inconsistencies, the red flags that others seemed to miss.
It's a good reminder for all of us, isn't it? Question everything, especially when something seems too good to be true.
Absolutely. Trust your gut, But more importantly, trust your head. Do your research.
Because knowledge is power, right? And that's what Edward O. Thorp's story teaches us. The power of curiosity, the importance of challenging assumptions, and the impact we can have when we use our knowledge for good.
He reminds us that learning, exploring, it's a lifelong pursuit. And sometimes, the greatest adventures are the ones we create ourselves, by daring to ask questions, by seeking out new knowledge, by never settling for easy answers.
So go out there, find your own deep dive, your own impossible challenge. You never know what you might discover.